Hello and welcome into the Take 10 podcast. This is Alex Roux of Big Ten Network, and this week's guest is former Nebraska linebacker, NFL draft prospect JoJo Domann. Let's get into it.
Take a look, listen, and enjoy. Look at here.
With the catch, the finish. Oh my goodness! What a catch!
Oh
Energy,
my goodness!
enthusiasm. It's picked off. It's selfish. Brilliant.
He's still going. Touchdown!
All right, before we get to JoJo Domann, quick word from our sponsor, Northwestern University School of Professional Studies. You can build a solid foundation in the strategic, creative, and analytic skills that are essential for success in the business of sports in the master's program in sports administration at Northwestern University. Find out more at sps.northwestern.edu/sports. All right. Great opportunity there, as always. Longtime sponsor of the show. If you're looking to work in sports, work at a place like Big Ten Network, check out that master's program. All right, we're going to get into JoJo Domann in just a moment. Like I introduced at the top, 6-year student athlete at Nebraska, and had a awesome year, All-American level year at Nebraska this past season, a super senior season. Great career overall, but kind of a guy who just worked his way up, kept grinding, and carved out not only a great career there, but has probably positioned himself for a really good opportunity in the NFL. So we'll see what happens with him throughout the draft process. We talk about that with him, talk about his Nebraska career, and it's a guy who has definitely made himself available for Big Ten Network interviews late in his career here, and it's good to continue to get to know him. So we'll toss it over now to former Nebraska linebacker JoJo Domann. Starts right now. All right, very pleased to be joined by outgoing Husker linebacker JoJo Domann here on the podcast. He spent 6 seasons at Nebraska. Going to spend a little bit of time, a little less than that here on the podcast. JoJo, what's up, man? Good to talk to you again.
Alex, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And on video here, if you're watching on YouTube, you can tell the man is in comfy quarters. He's at home in Colorado, I believe. And what's it like, man, moving back in with the parents? It's that time of your life.
Oh man, it's a quick week, so it's nothing too crazy. Yeah, homemade meals are nice. Grandma sometimes cleans up after me, which is really nice. And just feeling that TLC to an extra degree, just being home. A lot of memories coming home. Everywhere I go, I can remember stuff from high school and just growing up. It's crazy being home, but yeah, we're getting working too.
Yeah. What step is this like in your draft prep, right? I know we saw you had the Note to Husker fans go out once you had surgery on your hand that ended your career there. So take me through the steps like between that message going out and then now and then up until April in the draft.
Yeah, so I guess you could say phase 1 was getting the surgery. And I'm 4 weeks out since Monday from surgery. So I'm starting to get some good range of motion in my hand, and can't make a fist quite yet, but that's what I'm working towards in these next 2 weeks. And then the next 4 weeks will be strength. And I'd say I'm entering into phase 2 right now, which is really just addressing all the imbalances in my body, my body's a machine and just attacking it like that. And if I got a flat tire or a low tire or a door that's not opening, a window that's not rolling down, we're addressing those things here in Colorado with my guy, and trying to be a Ferrari out there on the field.
Yeah. So where are you about to be coming up? You said about a week in Colorado. Where are the stops going to take you, through the holidays, through the spring, all that?
So I'll be in Lincoln next week for our banquet, and I'll do some training out there. And then I'll be in Grand Island with my girlfriend for Christmas. We've been together for 5 years. So that was about time that we take that next step and spending the holidays together. So that'll be interesting. And then I take off to Dallas on the 28th. My brother Brock plays for Louisville. They play Air Force out of all teams in the nation. I'm 10 minutes from the Air Force Academy right now. They play them at SMU Stadium on the 28th. Then I'll take off to Cancun on a little family vacay, get some beach work in down there, and then come back home for a week. And I take off to Florida, start getting ready for that Senior Bowl, spending 2 weeks about 10 days down there before Senior Bowl week.
Nice. Yeah. I was in Cancun for New Year's last year. They know how to do it. New Year's Eve.
Is it turn?
It was nice. It was COVID, so like we tried to play low key. But you could tell, you know, if you wanted the fun can find you for sure.
Definitely.
So, enjoy that. All right, JoJo. So you mentioned the surgery. How's that going to affect, I guess, you know, what you'll be able to do workout wise? Like, when are you supposed to be good to go? Take me through that timeline if you could.
Yeah. I mean, it's a 12-week surgery. So I'm at 12-week recovery. So I'm at 4 weeks, and sheesh, it's affected really everything. Like the first 10 days, I wasn't supposed to get my heart rate up for, I don't even know the reason, to be honest. But I mean, I've had to make a lot of accommodations. Like I can't bench, but I'm hitting push-ups, weighted vested push-ups, plates on my back. And just, I have to be creative and finding ways to still get the work. My upper body hypertrophied a little bit, lost a little bit of muscle mass just over those 10 days where I really couldn't do anything. And but I'm starting to get it back. So it really, everything I do, from my nutrition to my sleep to every habit that I have, is propelling me forward in this process.
All right. Well, you put plenty on tape to get on the radar of NFL teams for sure, and took your game really to another level, right? Your senior year in those 10 games, elevated that draft stock. Like, to be honest, just knowing, you know, where you were and where you are now, did you kind of expect to be in this position as now an older and somewhat undersized guy? Or are you like, all right, sweet, you know, we're on some boards now?
That was the intention, man. Yes, the opportunity to Nebraska was one that I didn't want to pass up. I felt like I had unfinished business, and I wanted to dominate at the level I was at before I moved on to the next level. And that was my intention. That was my focus. That's where all my energy and all my training was for that last off season. So for that to kind of come into fruition, and for me to have the season that I had, I feel blessed, but I also feel like I'm on my path. This is what I have wanted to do since I was 5 when I first picked up a football, and now I'm living it. So every day is an opportunity to live my dream. Every day is an opportunity to get better, and that's how I'm approaching it.
So what's it say about, you know, someone like you taking a longer road, right? 6 years down in Lincoln. Especially, you know, it's more so basketball, but even in football, there's always the eye toward like the younger athletes, the you know, the higher ceiling and maybe less proven. But you did it, man. You know, you went from a special teams player to safety at times, and now, you know, to a big time starting linebacker in the Big Ten. So don't be humble about that. You know, that's impressive. Kind of talk up the path and the value in seeing it through, in coming back to school and getting it done.
It's everything. It's sheesh. Almost feels like the hero's journey, where I came, saw early play time, even when I didn't believe in myself, got injured again, had to continue to fight through the adversity and the hardships of what the game demanded, and really finding out the biggest obstacle in me achieving my dream was myself, and then having to overcome that obstacle within myself, and then for it all to come to fruition. And it didn't happen the way we were supposed to. Like we weren't in the Big Ten championship, whatever. But man, I left everything I had. I poured my guts and heart out in that program, and I have relationships that will last a lifetime, and impacted few and far between. And just, I couldn't be more grateful for my experience and the lessons I've learned. Like I wouldn't be the man sitting right here in front of you today if it wasn't for all those hardships and the 6 years and the grind. And when it comes to those young bucks versus me, I'm ready to come in and compete and take a job right away. And that's my mindset. You're drafting a man on a mission by drafting JoJo Domann. So I wouldn't be here saying that if I left and declared last year.
Yeah, hungry. I love it. And you know, playing at Nebraska, I always knew, you know, since I've followed that program, really, that playing there carries a unique vibe, right? And like, I hadn't experienced it firsthand until I was there a few weeks ago for that Iowa game, and you know, I felt it, right? Like I knew it was going to be like that, but like it kind of takes being there to appreciate, okay, this team, even though despite the losing record, has 90,000 come out on the day after a holiday, right? On a holiday weekend, and the vibe is just insane. So being able to experience that, I don't know, I just want to be like, hey, like you guys got something legit going over there. I knew it, but
Yeah.
I'm just grateful to be able to have experienced that.
Yes. I mean, that was the biggest pull that brought me to Nebraska is I wanted to play for a program that they cared about football. And sheesh, I didn't even know the half of it when I committed. And to have a sold out stadium for a 3-8 team versus our rival where they could have had every excuse not to show up just is a testament to Husker faithful and the fan base in Nebraska. And that's what makes that place special, man. There's no pro team. There's nothing out there. There's nothing else out there besides Nebraska football in the football world. So you got the whole state on your back. And that's how I like to play. I like to inspire people with how I played and the intensity and the tenacity that I bring to the field and just trying to make the people proud. Whoever's watching me, just make them proud.
Yeah. And with that said, obviously you had a lot of sellouts there every single game, but what was maybe one of the games you look back on that brought the craziest atmosphere at your home stadium, Memorial Stadium, if you could think back to, the one that was the most lit, as the kids say?
Well, everything's perspective, right? So probably the most lit one on paper was Michigan this past year, the night game. It was popping. But I can remember, if you can rewind all the way back to 2016, from my perspective, I played the first snap of the first game on kickoff return in 2016 versus Fresno State. And it was a night game. The flashlights on the cameras were out. The stadium was rocking. And I'm out there on the front line of kickoff return. Felt like I was in a video game. And I'll never forget that moment because it didn't even feel real. It felt like everything was in slow motion. And it was just one of those moments where I couldn't even comprehend what was happening.
All right. How about going into an opposing Big Ten stadium? What was the craziest road atmosphere? You kind of looked around, you're like, all right, Big Ten football, straight up, it's legit.
I mean, you walk into the Horseshoe and you're like, is this the Roman Coliseum? Like, it is wild. And I think I've played there 3 times. And each time it just amazes me. So that atmosphere is wild. I loved playing at Oklahoma this year. The grass and the fans right on top of you. But then, I mean, even Iowa with you literally have a couple feet between the benches and the fans. And it's just something you got to get used to it. It's tough to block out people yelling your number, yelling your name, and then whatever nonsense they say afterwards. It's a skill to be able to block those guys out. So, I mean, really, there's some great venues in the Big Ten, and I'm just appreciative that I got to be a part of it.
All right. So what's maybe a stadium on the road where you looked up and like half the place is red, Husker Nation showed out. Is there an instance that you remember where so many Nebraska fans kind of overwhelmed the place?
CU and Northwestern. I mean, both of those. I mean, I remember CU did something to where they were going to take away season tickets or something if they caught you selling your tickets to Nebraska fans. Just some outlandish stuff. On top of Northwestern 2019, I'm like, over half the stadium was red. So our fans travel well. And it's crazy when you're in another opposing team's field and it feels like a home game.
That was just your fan club in Boulder, though. You had the hometown boys coming out to support.
For sure. That was surreal, man. That was a good one.
All right. So, we talk about Nebraska being, I would argue, unique, in the college football landscape and some of the opportunities that come along with that. And with your senior year, you hanging around for your 6th year, name, image, and likeness policy went into effect, which allowed you to, monetize your experience as a student athlete. But you also were able to use that opportunity to give back to the community and did something called Husker Heartbeat, right? Partnered with an insurance company to donate, at least $1,000 a week to different charities in the community, and saw where you raised over $21,000, which is amazing. And you started taking people like me, their jobs, because you had your own podcast as well. So getting into the media space as well. So, I assume just even aside from the football side of things, the fact that you're able to hang around, kind of pursue those opportunities and use some of this money coming your way to give back. I just want you to get into that opportunity and what that experience was like.
Yeah. I mean, It really was. It was part of the pie that needed to be had by me coming back. The Husker Heartbeat was an awesome opportunity. Edgewater Insurance, $12,000 throughout the year. Our listeners alone raised $10,000 to charities. So that was unbelievable to meet those families and to realize the impact you have just by caring and sharing resources. Like, I feel like that's what life's all about. And then for the podcast, I mean, I found out like 2 weeks, like, yo, you want to do a podcast, Husker Online, Sean Callahan? I had 2 weeks and I was like, well, like, yeah, sign me up. Like, time is now. And the growth I made just in my interviewing protocol, I guess, like from the first one to the last one just was night and day difference. And then it challenged me emotionally to show up after 9 losses, like the losses that we had, and still be there and to still create content and not focus on negativity and find the positive in everything and trying to be a light in a dark place. And the podcast was an avenue for all of that. So a lot of interpersonal growth happened through these opportunities, which is a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw you were an advertising PR major, and doing the podcast obviously folds into some of that communication that you picked up. You played golf with Kenny Bell with us for an episode that just dropped, so check that out. Link up with Kenny Bell where JoJo gets grilled on the golf course, but fun. So you got your media training in already, right? Like, we're gonna try and bring you to the studio in Chicago at some point. Do a little tour there. So it sounds like you're ready for like NFL Combine in February. The team interviews, you got to get face to face with some of these GMs. You know, the NFL media, where they're maybe a little less forgiving than Nebraska media. Are you ready for everything that comes after that? Maybe the Lincoln bubble that you're gonna pop out of soon.
I'm ready. It already feels like I've entered that next phase of my life. And I mean, 6 years is a long time in the same place. I lived in the same house for 6 years. And, you know, there's environmental cues that like we associate feelings with places, like as crazy as that sounds. So to just get out of that loop has been really nice already, just like a week out. And just moving forward, you know, you could be okay at being somebody else, but you're always going to be great at being yourself. And that's the philosophy that I'm taking with me on this journey, is just be great at being yourself. No matter who you're in front of, a scout, a GM, a coach, and other great athletes across the country. Just be myself, man. Trust myself, trust my training, and believe. Belief is the big thing for me. If you believe it, you can achieve it. If you don't, then you can't. So that's my mindset.
Going back to your charity work a little bit, are there ways for people to still get involved? I know, you know, the week by week campaign might be over, but if you have any opportunities for listeners out there to maybe contribute, now's the time to lay that out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can go to my website, and if you buy a Husker Heartbeat t-shirt, 100% of the proceeds goes towards a charity of that week. But with it all being done, I think just, I mean, if you look at Up Edgewater Insurance and Real Estate on Instagram, they still have some of those donation links that, I mean, there's 12 of them. So pick and choose, and whatever you feel called to, anything helps. And it's just a great opportunity to give back and to share the love.
Yeah, and continuing to follow you, I'm sure, as well, on Instagram and Twitter and all that. It's probably not going to be your last charitable endeavor, I'm confident in saying.
That's fair to say.
And just out of curiosity, you know, obviously this was had a charity aspect tied in, but with the NIL stuff that you maybe got involved with, you can share as little or as much as you want. Like, how does this work? Since it's so new for everybody, like you just get approached by some rep, like, and you have to weigh your options and just, you know, now that you're kind of out of college and you can talk about it a little bit, curious as to how these things come together.
Yeah. So I think, just like everybody else, I woke up on July 1st with a Runza and a GoPuff advertisement waiting in my open doors. And I was like, well, this ain't it. And I'm blessed to have a mother who's a marketing guru. And she's repping me, you could say. And we went out and have explored every opportunity. So the football camp that we had in July, we did it. The Husker Heartbeat Give Back, like we created everything. So my my word of advice to athletes is to, when you go somewhere like Chick-fil-A and you really resonate with Chick-fil-A, like ask to talk with the manager, put yourself out there, network. Even if he doesn't have an opportunity to do something with you, he might know somebody who does. And just by creating relationships with people in that world, you're setting yourself up for opportunities. And that's really all we did. And every dart we threw wasn't a bullseye, but the ones that did hit obviously hit. So it's just put yourself out there.
I will say you do have an advantage with your parents being so savvy. Like, got to know them a great deal, especially during that trip to Lincoln, and I feel like they'll steer you on the right course if you don't know what to do. They're pretty sharp. Also, with this being more commonplace and it's going to get even bigger, I'm sure. Like, I saw JJ McCarthy from Michigan posted about giving back to charity with his NIL money. That went crazy this week. And interacting with people like you and Kenny Bell, who is pretty much a legend, in Lincoln. He could be the mayor. I was joking pretty much that whole trip with him. Like, there's such a benefit, I think, in playing college sports that really does carry over beyond your playing days, right? Like, you can go back to Nebraska anytime and not only get a free drink, but you can probably, give back in some way or have some sort of support within the community. And I just think, like, no joke, for Nebraska especially, which is looking for ways to get in people's, front porches, on the doorstep. Like, that's a great recruiting pitch for them to have that support long after you leave campus.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Football is a platform, and it's really how you use it. If my time at Nebraska was solely about wins and losses, I'd be depressed. But it was so much bigger than that. It's about the lessons from the wins and the losses, and it's about the relationships you make and the impact that you can make. So, yeah, you said it. Like, Nebraska is a great a place for that, and if young kids aspire to live for something bigger than themselves, Nebraska is a place to do that.
For sure. And I want to get one more look into your kind of Big Ten perspective as a linebacker real quick before I let you go here, JoJo. It's putting you on the spot, but if you could give me 3 of the top toughest opposing players to tackle to bring down that you played against throughout your career.
My whole career?
Yeah, it could be any.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
J.K. Dobbins, Ohio State.
Pretty good.
Yep. Whew. I felt like I ran into a cement truck when I tackled him. I mean, I didn't get a clean lick on Jonathan Taylor, but I mean, he was a tough one to bring down as well.
You might get a chance in the NFL.
Yep.
We'll see. He's doing pretty well.
Sheesh. Honestly, the Oklahoma running back was nice. Number 26. I don't know his name, but he had a really nice base. One of those guys where you got to bring everything. You can't just if you just throw your body at him, you're going to bounce right off. Like, you got to bring the contact and wrap up. And I think I missed 2 tackles on him in that game. So I'll give him some props on that.
All right. We'll look up that name. We'll get him on a graphic or something. And, even though we don't like to give the Sooners too much love, it's all good.
Right.
Got to respect game. All right, JoJo, last question. Off the field, away from the training room, away from the 2 days, all that stuff. What are you doing in your downtime before the draft? For, your life is completely locked into whatever organization you end up at. What's like, the TV shows you're streaming, the activities or hobbies you're picking up? What's going on in the life of JoJo Domann?
I'm so glad you asked. It's all about up leveling for me. I don't know where I got this growth mindset from, but I cannot stay stagnant. If you're not going forward, you're going backwards. And I love reading. I counted yesterday. I read 11 books this year without even trying. My goal for 2022 is 20 books. The book I'm reading right now is Untethered Soul. If you want to search yourself, read that book. It's unbelievable. And I mean, from meditations to yoga to reading, when it comes to TV, I probably rewatched Ted Lasso this year. I've been fiending for it. On top of, I want to watch that Tom Brady thing that's coming out on Apple TV. So yeah, just mindfulness practices, man. I love relationships. The more I can pour into my people, the better off I am energetically. So, man, I'm literally living my dream, Alex. like I'm on cloud 9, and whatever happens, whatever comes my way, I'm ready for it. So thank you for having me on, man. And I look forward to linking up with you soon.
Yeah, I love to hear that, man. And easy guy to root for sure. It was great meeting you at the beginning of the season or in the summer, and then seeing you have a great year and you know, put yourself in a position to live out your dream, like you said. So gonna be following, gonna be rooting for you, and appreciate you jumping on and letting us behind the curtain a little bit as you leave Nebraska and transition to the next period of your life.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again to JoJo for joining me. Really, really good guy, good family. Been able to, you know, meet him, meet his parents, and guy who's going places for sure, football and beyond. And best of luck to JoJo once again as he goes through the limbo between college and the NFL. All right, next guest to wrap it up, it's Harold Shelton. Listened to the show before. Harold is our manager of research at Big Ten Network and also is a very gifted sports talker. Always go to him for anything either stats related or just general Big Ten football and basketball specifics, you know, especially matchups, analysis, breaking down anything and everything Big Ten football. As the guy who puts the stat packs together for everybody at the network, he's on top of it, and he can put it into words in a way that most can't in the media business. So always fun to talk to and listen to him. And we talk, since we haven't had a podcast in a while, we talk about quite a few developments, both in the recent history of you know, Big Ten football, starting kind of pretty much at the Michigan-Ohio State game and working our way forward up until the college football playoff semifinal and the other bowl games that are going on. And we also talk Big Ten basketball as well, now that that's in full swing, kind of recap the first month, talk about where things are trending, where teams are trending, some surprises, some you know, upsets, and pretty much what we have to look forward to for the next 3 months. So really good convo with Harold. We'll get to him. It's Big Ten Podcast discussion with Harold Shelton. Very excited to be rejoined by Harold Shelton, Big Ten Network Manager of Research, in mid-December. It's been a while. It is just on the other side of your birthday weekend here, so shout out to you. Happy birthday. You can tell the folks how old you turned if you like. That's optional. But I know you look refreshed and relaxed. The folks on YouTube, that you just got back from a tropical vacation. So what is up? And again, happy belated.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. 38 years on this earth is always a good thing. It's always a blessing to see another year. So definitely happy about that. And you're right. I am much more relaxed coming back. Football season was definitely a grind. So it's always good to kind of get away. And my birthday pretty much falls in line with a nice slow period. So I was able to kind of sneak out as soon as bowl stuff got done.
Yeah, every year that's something nice to look forward to. Like, you got the gauntlet of the season, but at least you know your birthday is on the other side of Indianapolis and can just kind of chill. Yeah, exactly. And that's just, you know, hopefully I can continue to do that. You know, we'll see what the wife says. You know, she's the boss. So we'll see if that could continue going forward. All right. Well, back for now. You know, it is a slower time, like you said. I think we're all happy about that. Got hoops going. We got football, you know, with a lot of stakes still ahead of us with the college football playoff and a team involved in that. A lot of bowl games coming, but we just got to catch up on some stuff because it's been a while, you know, due to that hectic schedule, due to, you know, my capability of lining up guests. You know, we just had a few week hiatus. So before we get into all that entails those few weeks, real quick, let's do what we do. Guest related, right? We try and offer up some memories that associate with each guest. So had JoJo Domann on this episode. What do you remember? And obviously it's more recent because he just wrapped up his career in Nebraska, but what are some highlights from his career that stand out to you? Just a versatile athlete, man. Just a versatile athlete. I think it's really interesting that he was a second team All-American by the AP that came out this past week on a team that was 3-9. It just goes to show you how much of an impact he made. And I believe he's the first Nebraska player to be an AP All-American in 7 years, you know, since like Amir and Randy Gregory. So, you know, that's joining pretty good company there.
I thought it was also interesting that they listed him as a DB when he mostly played linebacker. So again, just kind of goes to show you the versatility and athleticism that he has. Certainly a guy that can make a lot of plays sideline to sideline, and well-deserved award for him, and congrats to him.
Yeah, happy for him for having such a nice super senior year. It's interesting because we had linked up with him over the summer to do some content opportunities that were specific to Nebraska and Kenny Bell. So got to know him, and then seeing him, really show out his senior year. Like, he was an impact player, but put his name, firmly in some NFL draft boards, and just had, I guess, the payoff that you really want if you're somebody who's coming back for the extra year when you don't have to. And I think we're seeing, I don't know, I feel like there's been a decent amount of those stories lately, like Kenny Pickett coming back when he could have gone, now is a Heisman finalist and will be a top overall pick, and just guys who now might see the benefit of coming back to school, investing that time, and then it doesn't always have to be the unproven or high ceiling commodity that leaves school early.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure he didn't get the team success that he wanted, but it's cool that he was able to, kind of bet on himself. Say, you know what, I'm going to give it one more shot, show the NFL what I can do. It's always good to see those guys that bet on themselves, don't get hurt, and wind up, parlaying that into, either getting on a draft board or climbing higher up on a draft board. I'll be shocked if he's not at the combine, and he'll have another chance to impress more scouts there.
Yep. All right. So good stuff with JoJo. Got a lot, like I said, to catch up on, though. I think most notably, biggest event that happened since we stepped away was Michigan beating Ohio State, right? And then rolling in Indianapolis, 42-3 over Iowa, really cementing themselves as having a legendary dream season. I just was looking back to those last couple of moments where, like, they knew they were going to win. It was snowing. The crowd felt it. They were doing the pump it up sound song in the stands, and they kept cutting to Harbaugh. Like, really, it was production mastery by Fox Sports in those last couple of minutes there. I didn't get to watch the whole game because I was coming back from, I think, Nebraska that weekend, but I did get to watch the second half and the ending, and like that just encapsulated kind of, that downtrodden in that rivalry team rising up and finally vanquishing, the tormentor, so to speak, and all that emotion was captured, and I'm sure we'll see that reflected still as that fan base is riding a high down in South Florida down to the end of the month. So just thoughts on that, as being a neutral observer from stats perspective, and also being a Michigan State guy who knows what it's like to be wrapped up and tangled up with Michigan when it comes to rivalries, just reflecting on that massive event that we didn't get to in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, for Michigan fans, it has to be, just an absolute thrill. I assume that last 10, 15 minutes, maybe not a game time, but a real time, was just completely cathartic, right? Where you're going to win the game, and the way you're winning it, like, you're just a better team. Like, it's no fluke about it. It's no, they had some crazy bounce go our way or some call that went against us. Like, you lined up, you punched them in the mouth repeatedly. They could do nothing to stop you on either side of the line of scrimmage. And you were just better. And when you were kind of promised this when Jim Harbaugh came in, you were expecting this, and it hadn't happened. And you kind of wonder if it's going to happen after, they go 2-4 a year ago. Obviously, COVID, messed with a lot of programs, but, you just kind of wonder what it's going to be. You start the year unranked. I don't know how many people saw this coming back in September outside of that locker room. And so when you see it play out that way, it had to be just a great feeling for them. Obviously coming up short in that rivalry. And then to combine that with just completely blowing the doors off of Iowa, that game's over with, 5 minutes into the second half pretty much. And you're in the playoff. You've accomplished all the things that you wanted up to this point. It had to be a great feeling for them. Obviously, as a Michigan State fan, dealing with Michigan fans a lot, the alums I've encountered have been pretty cool about it. Some some others maybe not so much, but hey, they're the champs for now. And, you tip your cap to them. They had a hell of a year and see if they can keep it going.
Hey, you mentioned the whole Harbaugh resurgence, and like I was one of those people who didn't really get it, when they were running it back with him, and I was just like, it's there's so much pressure already on him and it hasn't worked at this point, and just one of those situations where it seems like it may never. But man, like credit to him. Obviously, we known he was a great coach. Like they've been very, very good even before this year under him there, despite the rivalry, falling short in some of those rivalries, and the Super Bowl coach and was awesome in San Francisco. And so it's like we knew, he was capable of succeeding like he has in Michigan. And when it just didn't happen, I was a little skeptical that it would work out. I certainly didn't see it, manifesting like this. But shout out to him for staying the course and really having, as he calls it, I believe, for putting together a good little ball team. So they certainly are, and they got a Heisman contender too out of it. Aiden Hutchinson finished second. So every team like this kind of needs or kind of usually has a face of the program, and that's definitely him.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that two of the guys I sent the media day were Hutchinson and Haskins, and those were the two that clearly seemed like the leaders on this team, the two faces on one on each side of the ball, and they were the main reason why they got to the point that they're at right now. And I think that the Haskins part for me was interesting because a lot of Michigan fans love the higher rated guys, and Haskins was kind of a 3-star. And then you had your Zach Charbonnets and you had your Blake Corums, and you had all these guys that were rated higher than him. And he just physical, never falls, always falls forward, never has a negative play, runs angry and hard. And once Corum got hurt and he became the feature guy, like he just put that offense on his back. And obviously on the other side, like we knew Hutchinson was good before, had some injuries, decided to come back, wanted to run it back, wanted to win the Big Ten, wanted to beat Ohio State, all the stuff he said. And it came true. We didn't know about David Ajabo. And now, you had the best bookend duo, I guess, in the country with those two. So, I definitely want to give him a lot of love. I know we talk a lot about Hutchinson, but it's hard to double because you got that guy on the other side. So, if you got one guy getting 11 sacks, another guy getting 13, best of luck. It's not like Hutchinson was just kind of doing it by himself. I got to give Ajabo a lot of love too.
Yeah, that was another moment at the end of the Ohio State game where Ajabo did the LeBron stomp celebration, and then on the sideline they crowned him, did the same celebration that I think LeBron had done against the Pacers a couple nights before, and doing that to his team, right? Like his favorite college team, I thought was pretty savvy. And you mentioned Haskins as well. Like he had a big enough impact that Harbaugh snuck Haskins' name into the Heisman ceremony when they interviewed him on Saturday night, just kind of out of nowhere. They were talking about Hutchinson, and then Harbaugh said, "Oh, and Hassan Haskins was like just as crucial, pretty much, to this team." Paraphrasing a little bit, but thought that was interesting. And like I was fortunate enough to go to the Heisman Trophy festivities this past weekend in New York, and like seeing Hutchinson up close. Like he's got the full kind of package when it comes to the face of a program. Like very just kind of affable dude. Like he got along well. Like knew what to say to the media. I think the Heisman thing is just the latest event, right? That is kind of this nonstop rush for Michigan fans. Like they knew they had a good team, then they beat Ohio State, takes it to a completely another level. Indy, they continue to ride that. And then the Heisman is just a nice, thing to pay attention to and see your team's name up in lights and a player be honored. And it all kind of leads to this college football playoff semifinal coming up. And like, this is the best part, I think, of being a fan, right? Is when your team is on the way either back or up, and it's just kind of this nonstop rush of optimism. I remember feeling it personally, like as a Cubs fan, like, when they were on the way in 2015 and then 16, and it's just, you kind of feel like invincible. And I just kind of know what Michigan fans are probably feeling right now after being away for so long.
Yeah, and I think it's more fun when it's not expected.
Totally.
Not to say that Michigan didn't think they'd have a good year, but I don't know how many people saw them being 12-1 and completely dominating Ohio State the way they did and running away in a championship game like they did. To personalize it, it kind of felt 2013 Michigan State-ish to me, where it started out unranked and it was just kind of like a slow build. And then they get to November and they start killing people. And then they get to the championship game and they run away there and, they finish in the top 4. And, it's kind of similar with Michigan where, they both started unranked. Michigan had some scares, Cade McNamara, we didn't really know if he was going to be a good quarterback. And, they suffer a loss, they bounce back from it. And it just kind of all comes together and they play their best football at the end of the year, which is what they're doing now. And, at this point, I don't want to say it's house money because I think they're certainly capable enough to win 2 more games. But even if they don't, I don't know how you could be upset if they happen to finish 12-2 with a Big Ten championship and a win over Ohio State.
All right. So the way the playoff worked out, we didn't expect Alabama to be number 1 going into that Auburn game, or at least, even late in that game. They were so close to being knocked out completely. And of course, you give them a little slice of light in the tunnel, they might bust through, and they did. So got to get by Georgia first, obviously. They were kind of the number 1 team all year that everyone feared. Great defense, but took it on the chin in that SEC championship game. How does Michigan match up with Georgia? To be honest, I'm kind of hearing what you're about to say for the first time. I don't watch a ton of SEC football, and I just kind of know what the national media has fed me about Georgia. So how does Michigan stack up, and what can we look forward to down at the Hard Rock Stadium New Year's Eve?
I think of the teams that are in the playoff, of the other 3, this is probably the worst matchup for them, to be honest. I think it would have been much better if Georgia was 1 and they could have played like Cincinnati or, Big 12 champ or Notre Dame. That's not to say that Michigan can't win the game, but, Michigan wants to be tough, physical, run at you, wear you down, and Georgia's really, really good up front. And so it's just a much harder matchup. I think Alabama was able to beat Georgia throwing over the top. Bryce Young got out in space, ran around. I know J.J. McCarthy could do that. Cade doesn't really do that much. Maybe we'll see more of McCarthy to try to, get those Georgia guys in space as a runner and stuff like that. But I just think it'll be really, really tough to kind of impose their will, which they like to do against, as we saw against Ohio State, against Iowa, and against a lot of the teams on their schedule. They were just able to, hit them with body blows early, and then wear you down. Georgia plays the exact same way. And I think they'll have some issues moving the ball against Michigan. And I think the quarterback matchup is probably going to be the key. I'm not a huge Stetson Bennett guy. If they get behind, I don't know if he's a guy that can lead them back. But if they get a lead, then they can just lean on you, wear you down. I think that's where it becomes an issue. But if Cade McNamara makes enough plays, if he plays the way he has, since October 30th, where he's been outstanding, then I think Michigan's got a good shot.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. And it was nice, I think, not to go back to Indy, but just to see a team that, was there for the first time in Michigan and Iowa too. It was the second time for them there, obviously, but just, it goes back to the joke of a college football playoff, switching up the colors. Like, there was always the same color teams. And we kind of had that in Indy for a while. It was always like Wisconsin, Ohio State. Yeah, Northwestern was there a couple times, but you always had the scarlet and gray on one side, and they earned it. But, that game, I think, becomes a stepping stone, as opposed to an event if you're there over and over again. This was like the main event for Michigan. And, it was cool to see the excitement just in Indy, just be the best it's been since I've been down there. So sure, I'm sure that will carry over South Florida as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd be shocked if Michigan didn't try to flood that place.
Dude,
you don't know how many opportunities you're going to get in a game like this.
The flight prices down to Florida right now from Chicago, You know how many Michigan alumni are in Chicago, and I think the airline algorithms have figured that out. So
that doesn't surprise me. I mean, if it was me and it was my team down there, I'd be trying to find a way. I don't know if I'd have to drive a few hours and then fly somewhere, or what the case would be, but I certainly be trying to get down there. I know for 2015 in Dallas, we tried a few different things to get some people down there, and we figured it out and got down there. So I fully expect Michigan to do the same. Again, unless your name is Ohio State or Alabama, like, you can't expect to be in the playoff every year, every other year. It's just really, really hard to finish in the top four. So, hopefully Michigan fans can get down there, enjoy their team, enjoy the season, maybe win a game or two more. And if they do win in Miami, I mean, the championship game is right back in Indy.
It's Indy, yeah.
You get a nice drive again to try to do it all over.
For sure. So I'm sure we'll talk more about that. I bet we'll have another podcast before the playoff. I know it's tight with Christmas, but I'm going to try and get our guy Jake Butt on down in South Florida, maybe the day or two before the game. He's been helping us out lately. Our guy Brent, got in touch with him, and he's been an asset to us as far as, especially now that he's out of football. Unfortunately, those injuries, couldn't really shake those. But he's been an awesome personality just on digital, and try and link up with him down in Florida. We can talk maybe one last preview before the game. So we'll talk more about the CFP. Before we switch to hoops, which I love chatting about always. Any other bowl headlines that stand out? I mean, Ohio State, Utah in the Rose Bowl. Never sneeze at a Rose Bowl. Like, I don't care who you are, what program you are. Should be an awesome experience. You got your boys in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta against Kenny Pickett, and that sweet hair, slick back hairstyle he brought to New York this weekend. Any thoughts? I don't know. Just kind of running through. We got 9 bowl teams. So that's good.
Yeah, that is good. The Ohio State thing's interesting, just because, like, I know you said that, you can never sneeze at a Rose Bowl, and I certainly feel the same way. I just wonder if your whole goal every year is to win the Big Ten championship and get to the playoff, and you don't. How fired up are you? I don't feel like any program is above the Rose Bowl if you're a Big Ten team, but Ohio State kind of pushes against that a little bit. I just wonder how motivated they'll be. I do think CJ Stroud playing at home, like, he'll be fired up. As a California kid playing in that venue, I'm sure it'll be awesome for him. And then the matchup itself isn't great. I mean, Utah's a team that wants to be physical and run right at you and go downhill and punch you in the mouth. And that didn't work out so well the last time we saw the Buckeyes. So I don't think they're as talented as Michigan, but they're certainly really physical. So I'll be curious to see, if hearing over and over again about how they lost and, the problems they had on defense, if they just rise up and take it out on Utah, or is this another case where Utah just, hey, we're excited to be here. We've never been here. And does Ohio State, rise up against that, or they say, hey, you know what, we'll play and see what happens. And if we win, we win. Cool. If we lose, we'll get ready for next year. We already got a new defensive coordinator, and, we'll see what happens. And as for the Peach Bowl, we don't know if Kenny Pickett's going to play. He said he's unsure. Now there's reports that Kenneth Walker might not play because of injuries and stuff that he's been trying to battle through.
But
I would take a lot of luster off that matchup if neither of those guys play.
By the way, Kenneth Walker, man, like, that dude should have been
Don't get me started.
Finalist.
Don't get me started.
All right, we won't get into like.
Don't get me started on that. Unless if you got another hour, then I'll get started.
The way, just again, it goes back to like our narratives that we talk about in college football, and how everyone's got to just kind of package college football the way they're always used to seeing it. And that goes for awards, that goes for prominent programs a lot of times. I will say though, like you mentioned CJ Stroud, and I learned, a lot about him this weekend. Just being kind of up close with him at the Heisman stuff, like, seems like a really nice dude. As a redshirt freshman, awesome accomplishment, obviously for anybody, but especially for him to get to the that stage as a Heisman finalist. Kind of shared some of his story about, trying to get out and uplift his family from, some tougher circumstances in SoCal. And I kind of felt bad for him at times up there because like the Michigan guys like Desmond Howard, they were relentless up there. And I know, to college football fans and just like, people who don't live and breathe the rivalry every day, it's funny, it's a joke, but like I know if you're up there, you're Ryan Day in the crowd, you're CJ on the stage, like I'd be biting my lip quite a bit if I was on the stage and had to hear about the Michigan game so many times, because it's like, hey, we did dominate this for almost a decade and 17, 18 years or whatever it was. So those jokes were getting off pretty fast and furious up there.
Yeah, it's been quite the victory lap for Michigan, and Ohio State has had to take it, for lack of a better term.
You got it. Yeah.
It's an interesting spot just because they aren't used to it. I mean, if you haven't lost for a decade, I wouldn't be used to it either. And so I'll be really curious, to see how they attack next year. They've already got a new defensive coordinator, as we talked about. And just how much of that do they just channel like all of the jokes that have been flying, hearing about their manhood being questioned and their toughness being questioned and, all of this stuff. I'll be very curious to see how they bounce back from it. I'm sure they'll be fine. It's Ohio State. They're a machine. They always roll. But even when they were winning, it didn't feel the same. It felt more finesse, and we're not really used to seeing that from them. So I'll be curious to see what it's like going forward.
All right, well said. And before we wrap up, Ace, let's talk some hoops. The season's really cranked up since we last spoke. There's been some ups and downs for the Big Ten for sure. When you enter the season, I believe 5 top 25 teams, you sit at 3 currently. Definitely some lumps early on, and we'll see how that plays out as we get into conference play. And, we've always talked about in the past how like it's so important to kind of frame your narrative as a conference early on, because that way, if you can stack up some W's and stay atop those KenPom, those net ratings, just it makes the losses and it makes the wins more significant in conference play and the losses less so. And, you're entering now a couple weeks from full on conference play, not in as good a position as you have in the last couple of years, especially not last year when everything was really, really strong. But again, you saw how that turned out in the NCAA tournament with, teams falling off. So who knows what happens down the road, but just kind of recapping, tough look in the Gabby games for the Big Ten, a lot of losses to the Big East, and then better showing in ACC Big Ten. It kind of looked like they were going to run away with the ACC Big Ten challenge. ACC had a good final night. And then we just had some wild stuff also happen, right? Like Mark Turgeon stepping down. We would not have seen that coming, like maybe at the end of the year, but in December, that was weird. Michigan has struggled mightily, a team that came in the top 10 and you thought, they could maybe keep it going. I'm honestly not as surprised as maybe a lot of people are. I thought it'd be a tougher transition, seeing as you lost a, NBA Rookie of the Year candidate and Wagner and Livers and
Shawnee Brown, Mike Smith.
Yeah, Shawnee Brown and Mike Smith, the transfers, right? Like it's a lot to replace. Illinois being really up and down. We can talk more about that in a second, but just like, you expect to have Andre Curbelo and healthy and you expect, maybe some more stability, and they've had some really good stretches of basketball. Probably should have beaten Arizona the other night. And also, really, really rough start that frustrated me to no end, but that's the fan of me talking. And then just continue to run down the list here. Minnesota, feisty, right? 8-1. Only loss came to your guys at MSU. So I guess let's just get into it. Like overall thoughts on the conference so far. Didn't even mention Purdue, who got the number 1 in the country before the shocking shot of the, probably the best shot we've seen on Big Ten Network ever with Ron Hartford Jr.'s buzzer beater. So let's get into it all at kind of a macro level and close out with some hoops talk.
Yeah, I think that the bottom of the league is really strong. Unfortunately, the media won't care about that. And I don't know how much the talking heads will care about that. Last year, we had like a really, really good top and a really strong middle, and the bottom was just kind of But there really won't be many off nights in this league. Minnesota was picked, bottom 2, bottom 3 in the conference. A bunch of guys transferring in and out. They got 3 road wins against Power Fives, including winning at Michigan. And they're doing it with, pretty much an entirely new roster outside of Eric Curry. I'm really, really impressed with what Ben Johnson's done there so far. And the fact that they're doing it and they're not turning the ball over, considering they got a whole new team, and like they don't turn the ball over. It's crazy. And they're not that deep, and they're still finding ways to win. Definitely kudos to him. Rutgers are struggling, and then they go and beat number 1. So again, it just kind of goes to show what the league could be this year. I thought Purdue was kind of head and shoulders above everybody else. Part of that, I think, is because I've been a huge Jaden Ivey guy since last January. And I just, after they beat North Carolina the way they did and Villanova the way they did, I'm thinking, okay, they're going to be 1. They might win the league by a few games. Not so fast. And they followed that up with that NC State performance. They probably should have lost. Trevion Williams saved the day there. It's an interesting league. You talked about Illinois already. Michigan, they're having issues. They kind of remind me a little bit of Michigan State last year, where they don't have a point guard, and nothing else matters if they don't have a point guard. And they brought a guy in. It hasn't worked out thus far. Freshman not quite ready yet. Eli Brooks really isn't a point guard. Dickinson hasn't been the same because he doesn't get the looks that he got last year. So I think they're going to take a little time to figure out. And then my guys are kind of just laying in the weeds a little bit. No one's really talking a lot about them. And here they are, top 10 defense in the country. Tyson Walker seems to kind of figure it out a little bit at point guard. And all of Izzo's teams, all his really good ones, have that leader. They have that point guard that kind of makes it all go. We'll see if Tyson Walker can continue that. But I haven't seen a point guard at Michigan State kind of control the game the way he has without scoring like he has. Like we've seen like the Kalen Lucas and the Cassius and Neitzel and guys like that, but they're usually scoring to control it. The Louisville game, he scored like 2 points. He had 10 assists and was great on defense. And he's only averaging like 8 points, but you can tell he's getting more comfortable. He's getting guys involved. And they could be pretty dangerous if they cut down on the turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, his point guard that's cost him at least last year, and what you miss trying to bridge that gap between the Cassius era and the post-Cassius era. So definitely critical for them. You mentioned that Purdue NC State game, and I was there and like had some just kind of lucky seats, and that's what I like about some of those events that are just kind of going under the radar. Like hopped on over there after the Heisman stuff this weekend, and I just kind of sat at the scorer's table right by Purdue's bench. So first of all, Matt Painter's hilarious. Like I knew he was, but just like hearing what he says to his coaches throughout a full game, like as if it's standing right next to me, was awesome. I would pay a lot of money, if I was a Purdue fan, to have that privilege. Just excellent monologue that he has going throughout the game. And Purdue, like just one of those weird things where they were not in the game, like it looked like mentally or emotionally or anything. And then they just, like great teams do, flip the switch and great players took over. Trevion Williams had an unbelievable game. Like Edey was doing well, but it wasn't really, when they're burying the ball into him, the rest of the offense wasn't really flowing. Threes weren't falling, free throws weren't falling. And Trevion just kind of opened up the entire court for them with his versatility. You see it all the time with great teams, like they're never dead until they're really dead. And NC State was just kind of controlling that game methodically until Purdue woke up. And Sasha Stefanovic was awful until he was great. And he pretty much won the game for them at the end of regulation, then an OT. So, yeah, I mean, that would have been a really tough loss to take for them on Sunday coming off the shocker at Rutgers. And it's just interesting with what you saw happen to that team and pretty much all the same guys against North Texas, right? Like, are they going to come out and lay an egg? And you saw the NC State game developing. You're like, this can't happen once we get to March. But Seemed like they figured it out. Maybe that was a hurdle they got over there on Sunday. And then after that, I wasn't able to catch the end of it. Had to head back home. But Maryland beating Florida, that's a nice response. Florida also had a rough couple of weeks here. But Maryland, with an interim coach and Danny Manning and a guy who seems to truly, care and show emotion. And he was, heartfelt in that post-game interview. Cool story for them. Good to see those guys haven't given up when the coach leaves, I guess, at least to an outsider unexpectedly.
Yeah, that again, the timing of that was really, really weird. And, again, shout out to Danny Manning for getting those guys together and getting that win. I know, again, we talked on Trevion Williams. I'd be remiss, though, if we didn't talk about Ohio State and E.J. Liddell.
Right.
They had a tough good. November.
Yeah.
They bounced back. They beat Duke. He's been great. They smacked Wisconsin over the weekend. And again, it's early. It's just mid-December. Don't know what, metrics that people like looking at. But, for fun, every once in a while, I'll check Ken Palm's Player of the Year. And E.J. Liddell is absolutely running away with it nationally right now. He's just been a monster. Like, I know they've had, some issues, point guard at times, defensively at times, barely beat some teams, like the Akron game to start the year, stuff like that. But he's been a constant. I know he was on the fence last year in terms of, coming back or not. It looks like a great decision for him so far. And, a couple of other guys I think have risen up that we might not have expected. Johnny Davis being one of them at Wisconsin. I think, we kind of had a tough start as a league, after Gavitt games, but, Wisconsin winning the Maui tournament and him kind of having a coming out party there was certainly a big deal. We're seeing Keegan Murray emerge as well. He's been great. TJD's doing his thing in Indiana. So those four, and Trevion Williams apparently now is second on the Ken Palm Player of the Year. So Big Ten has 5 of the top 10 in terms of his Player of the Year rating so far. So got a lot of really good individual performances, which is interesting considering how much star power we lost a year ago. And we got new guys emerge, and the league appears to be in good hands.
Yeah, EJ really, I think, has an NBA game, right? Like, he can step out and knock it down. He's got a great feel for the game. Like, I'd be surprised if he doesn't stick somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. Not super athletic or anything, but guy just knows how to play, and he's efficient, and he can shoot it. He's pretty much automatic from 2. I think he's shooting like 64% from 2, but he can make threes as well. Good on the glass, good at the line. So, again, shout out to him for coming back, working on his game even more, and, kind of becoming the main guy. He kind of split a little bit with Dwayne Washington a year ago, but it's clearly his team now. And, they've appeared to figure some things out.
Yeah. And like, it's interesting, we're kind of come up for air from football and just with travel, to be honest, like, I haven't watched as much Big Ten basketball as I normally do. I usually, try to watch like most games. And I'm now just reflecting in our discussion here. And like you said, we've had Duke being upset as a number 1 team by Ohio State, Purdue as a number 1 team, and going back to Ohio State, then beating Florida on a buzzer beater. There's been a lot that's happened. It's been an interesting year. I think this will be a fun season, even despite the tough opening week or two. There is a lot of star power, like you said, and I'm excited. I think it will be a solid league. I think it'll be a high bid league once again. I don't know. There's just too many good players, and I think having that star, power, even though, like I said, the struggles in March are still going to kind of, I think, follow a lot of the teams going into this next one and until they prove otherwise. But I like the way a lot of these teams are built, as far as, having 1 or 2 guys and then good coaches and just solid, lineups across the board. So really excited to get going in Big Ten play. Love getting the 2 games out of the way early. Like, that's nice. Just get a taste. And I know you agree with me there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I always wondered how that was going to work, especially like right after ACC Big Ten. I'm like, man, now you got 2 conference games, but it is nice. You get a taste of it. get your feet wet. Okay, figure out what you need to work on. All right, we'll step back. You get finals, stuff like that. You get an extra week and a half to practice. Got some bye games. In the case of Ohio State, they actually got Kentucky coming up. But more often than not, you got a chance to kind of get healthy, get some wins under your belt before you jump back in it for real in January. So it is nice to get a taste, really get to see what your team is about. And, it looks like that'll continue for the foreseeable future, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I got Crossroads this weekend and what do they call the Ohio State, Kentucky? Is that what classic is that?
Yeah, it's another 14 tournament with Carolina and UCLA. I forget.
Yeah, it's always in Vegas at T-Mobile. Yeah, that'll be fun too. And did you watch the Illinois-Arizona game the other day?
I saw bits and pieces.
You were on vacation.
Vacationing. But I saw they were up, and then I saw I got away. And I didn't really see what was going on, but I feel like they can't get whole until Curbelo gets back. And, I know Plummer's been really good for them recently, but they can't get to where they need to be without Curbelo being on the court.
It was a legitimately great game. And I couldn't watch like my full attention just because it was during the Heisman stuff, but it was a high level basketball game. Like Arizona, they're
good.
I don't know how. I guess I do know how people missed on them early just because it was a collection of new guys. But like when you got guys that are that talented, long, athletic, pretty much the FIBA team they got going over there. I was really impressed by Arizona, top 5 team now, and it's interesting because that's kind of the trend with like these Underwood teams, right? Like they struggle in non-conference and they run into some buzzsaws, and then they usually figure it out in Big Ten play. Now I think the key is can they readjust to then coming back and trying to beat non-conference teams in March. Like I think they will be good in Big Ten play. They're already 2-0. But I think you're right. I think there's a ceiling of sorts without Andre Curbelo. We talked about the importance of having good point guard play, and they don't have a true point guard really without Curbelo on the squad. And no one really knows when he's coming back yet. So hopefully he can get back soon. But I think people forget really quickly how great he was on last year's team. And yeah, there wasn't as much pressure on him because they had Io, but the dude was outstanding when Io was out, and he was outstanding in the Big Ten tournament. And when I see like some, Illinois tough guys on Twitter saying, oh, better without Curbelo and the turnovers and better. Yeah. First of all, people are allowed to have bad games, right? Like people are basing Curbelo's
just off the Marquette game, pretty much.
Yeah, off the Marquette game where he was bad, but like, everybody can have a bad game now and again. They can have a few per year. Like that's just going to happen. And I think because it was so early in the season, people just like have that stuck in their mind. And it's a minority slice of Illinois fans who believe that. I think that the team would be better off without him. Like absolutely not. He is a huge piece of what this team can be, and I think they're pretty good without him.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think. And I believe Raphael Davis commented on this earlier in the week. They just need a guy who can get in the lane and create for others. It seems like their offense right now is, all right, dump it into Kofi, see if he can get it. If he can't, kick it back out and shoot a 3. Like there really isn't a lot of like dribble drive. There really isn't a lot of
mid-range, like Iowa.
Mid-range. It's literally just, kick it in, see if he can go to work. If not, shoot a 3. So they really need him and his creativity because he's got a way of, getting guys the ball in good spots, whether it's at the rim or whether it's, coming off the screen for a 3 as he, draws attention. And they just don't have that guy right now. I know Trent Frazier's played a lot better recently, but, he's not a point guard. Right. The Arizona game, he had 1 assist. And as a team, they had 14 and they had 16 turnovers. And so, like they need a guy who can kind of get it all going at once.
Yeah, Kofi's putting up great numbers, and that's without somebody reliably feeding him the ball for easy dunks. Like he's had so many fewer dunks than last year. I'm pretty sure just because you don't have Io or somebody freeing him up. So we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. Optimistic about Illinois in the Big Ten race up there. With your guys at the top right now. So that'll be fun. Maybe we'll have a good running dialogue all season long about the Big Ten.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I don't think my guys can win the league. I still think Purdue's the best team, at least
Me too. Yeah.
January through through March. We'll see what happens if Corbello gets healthy or Michigan State figures out the turnover issue. But I think it could be a very fun race. I think it could be multiple teams involved, with Purdue just a little bit ahead of the others.
Yeah.
And so I'll be curious to see like who else kind of emerges from the Purdue, Michigan State,
Wisconsin.
Illinois, Ohio State. Does Wisconsin have staying power? Can Iowa emerge with Keegan Murray? Does Michigan figure it out? I'll be curious to see. Does Minnesota for real? How long does this last? Can it last all the way through? So I definitely got to show them some love. And I mean, heck, Northwestern playing well. We'll see how long that lasts. So, the league is different than what I think people thought, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
All right, well put. Great to catch up, chop it up, and we'll be back on sooner than later, I'm pretty sure. So enjoy the holidays. Once again, enjoy the afterglow of your birthday, and we'll hopefully have a good rest of the year 2021 here and a fun start 22. Do it.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right, thanks once again to Harold and JoJo for joining the show. A lot of fun talking to them. Really interesting time right now, Big Ten sports. I love December. As always, we got basketball in full swing, and you have major events going on, like the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Obviously, you got your championship games with Big Ten championship a couple weeks ago, and college football playoff coming up. The other bowl games, you got basketball rivalry games. You got we don't talk about it on here, but we've got volleyball Final Four with 2 teams in the Final Four. So just a lot going on. It's really the most fun month of the year for me personally, usually at the network outside of March and March Madness. And hope everyone's enjoying this just a buffet of sports that we got coming at us here. And hope you enjoyed listening to the podcast and us talking about it. And like I alluded to with Harold, we'll try and get another one out before 2022 begins. So stay tuned. Definitely subscribe if you haven't already on podcast platforms. Talking what do they call it now? Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Podbean, and Spotify. Pretty much everywhere you can find podcasts, we are available. And definitely subscribe to the Big Ten Network YouTube channel if you have not already. We're available on there as well. And you can see the guests on video in their entirety. Just find the Take 10 podcast playlist on YouTube. All right. Thanks once again to everyone for listening. Thank you to Julie Bronder for stitching the show together. And we'll talk to you soon here on the Take 10 podcast.